Woo-hoo! Are you in for a treat? Hey, I got something to say, ladies around the world and men. A few times a year, I bring on a special guest. Now, Matt, I'm going to say is a reoccurring special guest because every time I have a subject that I call my sticky wicket. Ooh, nobody wants to touch this. I go, Matt will touch this. But before we bring him in, let me tell you about Matt LaBosco. He's my pal. He's my friend. He's my mentor. I love him. Okay, done. Now, through his best-selling book, Health to Vitality, his online courses, live events, and exclusive one-on-one coaching practice, holler, Matthew has inspired and educated thousands of individuals to keep that word in mind, from the limitations of traditional healthcare model and empowered them to access a level of physical, mental, and systemic well-being that they didn't realize was possible. Matthew's formal education includes a degree in psychology from Rutgers College, is a graduate of American Institute of Alternative Medicine, a licensed massage therapist, a certified actress release technique practitioner, a fellow of applied functional science through the Gray Institute, I know that, is a certified heart math coherence trainer, and a practitioner of applied modern psychology. I hope I got it right. Matthew's vision is to empower individuals to step out of the limitations of traditional health paradigm and into the unlimited possibilities of vitality paradigm. What's going on, man?
Here I am.
Here
Let's do
I
it.
am. I'm
You always
so
bring you always
excited.
you bring me in for the spicy stuff. I love it. Let's do it.
Well, it's something that's been weighing heavy on my mind, not just because of not with my clients like your clients, but more with friends and family recently. This hits him, and I was like, that's it. So I started doing some research and I thought, Matt's got this. So I said, Matt, with the topic at hand, which we were talking about, how long do you stay in relationships, whether it's mom and dad, your son, your brother and your sister, significant other? And why do some people stay longer than they really should? And the one line that Matt came up with was, no one has the right to abuse you, no matter what they have done for you. You can see that. And that includes giving birth to you. So that's perfect. Perfect. So when I called Matt, I said, why is it that many of us, we know this is wrong, but we stay longer than we should because it's blood? And when it's not blood, it's easier for us to say, I'm out. But when it's your blood, man, we can do things that are really, really bad for us. And so, Matt, I'm going to rattle these things off that I sent you because I did some research. I asked people some questions they wanted to ask you. Okay, there's pages and pages. I think this affects a lot of people, Matt. I could be wrong.
100%.
I mean, in some way or another.
I've literally working with clients, probably multiple clients on this very specific subject. So when you asked me about it, I was like, absolutely, let's do it.
Okay. So here are some of the top reasons why people stay in an abusive relationship or stay attached longer than they should. Number one, there's emotional attachment. They still have feelings of love, loyalty, or duty because they're family. Number two, fear of rejection, isolation, losing other family members who don't really understand or society may not understand. Three, guilt and obligation. I'm going to check that off for me. Guilt and obligation. Number four, ooh, manipulation. I didn't know what gaslighting was, but it says
Mm.
gaslighting,
It's a
making
serious
victims,
thing, man. It's a
yeah,
serious thing. Yeah.
doubt their own perceptions and
Hmm.
playing on feelings of shame to keep them. Number five, and I get this one, financial dependency. Number six, I'm going to put red beam for me too. Hope for change, because that's the good side of me. I would believe there's
Sure.
possible change is possible. And number seven, cultural or religious factors. Now, Matt, when I sent this over to you, first of all, you said you couldn't read the first list. Let's just go with that.
Hieroglyphics isn't my specialty to read.
But next, tell me, you said the top four things are what?
Well, now that I'm looking at this list, one and two are stem from a very common, I would say this is a very common thing that's happening in our society, um, that's all rooted in not getting what we needed as children. So childhood experience. And so emotional attachment, and that word attachment is key right there, because what we need to understand is, and this is so important. And honestly, this is a lot of Gabor Mate's work. So if you really want to go vertical with this type of idea, I credit him with all this information.
Say that
He's finished.
again. Say who it is.
Gabor Mate, Gabormate. But he talks a lot about the attachment drive as we have as children, and our need for authenticity. Authenticity is a big thing right now. Being authentic, right? Like it's a buzzword.
Yeah.
And so what you have to understand about humans is when we are born, okay, we are the most dependent species, and we are dependent for the longest, more than any other species. Very different than like a turtle that gives birth. I mean, it's funny, we have the sea turtles here in Florida, and mom lays those eggs and she's like, see ya, good luck, guys. Hope you get to the ocean. Like, I'm out. Right?
Yeah.
Like they're fully capable. They don't need mom anymore. They just got to sprint to the ocean, right? Well, think about doing that with an infant. They're not going to survive. You have birth to a child and you just leave it, they're dead. And so what we have, and us humans, mammals, are more than other mammals because of how long the gestation period is, which is, some moms would argue it's 18 years. I think recently it's like 30 now, but never mind that. um, you
Basement
know,
kid. Basement
yeah,
kid.
exactly. Humans, like as an infant, you can't survive without your caregiver. So what we have is it's called an attachment drive. And an attachment drive means that we literally must get the environment, our caregivers, to accept us. We have to. It is a matter of life and death. And so we attach to them. And the mother, I'm going to use the mother because it's stronger with her, attach to the child. It goes both ways. It attaches both ways, and that is a strong bond that's important for both parties. Okay. Now here's where it gets tricky. As we start to develop and into toddlers, and we then have a need for authenticity. And authenticity means being able to express what I'm feeling freely without it threatening the attachment drive. Right. So here's like, let's say I'm a child and my knee hurts and I'm feeling pain or something, some kind of emotional pain. And me expressing that gets me into trouble. Like, hey, stop whining, stop complaining, stop this, or, they don't have time for this. And so there's this, perception of, oh my God, if I express myself or feel something, um, I'm getting shunned by the environment. That's a threat to my survival. Now, I'm not saying a 1, 2 year old's thinking this. This is what's
Yeah.
happening
Yeah.
unconsciously. And so what we do is we disconnect from ourselves and make sure that we do whatever we have to do to make sure the environment accepts us. Okay, so this is very important.
Okay.
Now, what's happening in that moment is we are putting aside our needs to make sure the people around us accept us, love us, and take care of us. That's a child's like absolute necessity. It has to do that. Okay, it's a matter of survival. It's primitive. It's literally wired in our biology and DNA. And so if we were trained as a child that our needs are a threat to this acceptance of the environment, we dissociate from ourselves. So we no longer matter, if you think of it that way. Our needs no longer matter. What matters is the needs of these people, and I have to make sure that I abide to what they need in order to be accepted. Now, again, makes sense for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever year olds, because they can't say, "Hey, I'm out of here. You guys are wacky. I'm going to go do my own thing." We can't
Yeah.
do that. But but our brain develops with that relationship, and our nervous system is wired that way. So now, fast forward to 30, 40, 50 years old, we're still relating to these people that way. we still, from a nervous system standpoint, it feels absolutely life threatening when we consider
Hmm.
disconnecting from them. Even though a lot of adults intellectually are like, it doesn't make any sense. Like,
Mm-mm.
why would I put up with this? It's because your frontal lobe isn't what's in charge here. Your cognitive, like, neocortex isn't what's driving the behavior. It's your primitive instinct that was rooted in your nervous system as a child. So when you say emotional attachment, that is 100% the reason. And fear of rejection, 100%, because as a child, if I don't get that attachment drive and I get rejected, I'm dead. Like, it's over. Like, you're done because you can't
Okay.
take care of yourself as a
Okay.
kid. But as an adult, our nervous systems, which is why it's so visceral and why it's so painful and why it's like we can't even imagine letting these people down or not tolerating whatever their conditions are to have us around, which sometimes are extremely abusive. We can't get our nervous systems to let go of that fear because basically it's like this is the negotiation of our nervous system. Hey, we tolerate this abuse or we die.
Okay.
So, okay, well, if those are my choices, I guess I'll stick around for a while. And so I know that's a pretty deep, big topic, but I believe, and again, I want to go down this tangent too far, because of the way our society doesn't really value raising our children. Okay, I said it, sorry, but I don't think that's something that's valued.
Mayday!
Um,
Mayday! We
okay.
gotta explain.
Right? As a society,
Drop that bomb.
yeah, well, I know, sorry, but it's
Okay.
manifesting as so many adults are behaving like children, and I don't mean that. I mean, obviously, there's like adults that behave as children, and we all can laugh about it, even though it's kind of scary at times. Like, we're not getting this. We're not put in an environment as children, a lot of us, where it's safe enough to explore who we are, and so we don't really know who we are, and so we default to, well, what does everybody else think of what I'm doing? And we start to make decisions based on the approval of the people outside of us. And of course, because of that attachment bond with our parents and our family, our first tribe, our first environment, that is going to be the strongest there. And so I just want to paint that context
Okay.
first
So
because
basically, what I'm hearing is don't beat yourself up
exactly.
for how you're not that it's not good.
Yes,
But I'm like, let yourself off the hook. There's a
correct.
strong reason why you're
Oh,
behaving like this.
stronger than you can imagine.
Because I know, not that this is what we are talking about with the guilt, but I know there's so many people that I know that they actually feel guilty because they want to separate from the family.
Mm-hmm.
They feel guilty that they didn't separate sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I should have been able to get out of this situation sooner.
Yes,
Matt
because
says no. It's
no,
okay.
yeah,
There's strong reason, man.
yeah, you're fighting a tens of thousand-year old, like, primitive drive here. Like, this is why it's so difficult
Yeah.
for people. And intellectually, you're like, why would I do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but you got to understand that your old brain is driving your behavior, not your new brain.
Makes way more sense. Okay. And I'm glad you did that first because it sets the foundation of why are we doing all this? All right.
Mm.
So now, knowing that, the biggest thing I hear over and over again of all these is it is really guilt. Like, I feel guilty. I feel obligated. I mean, they make me feel guilty. They make me feel obligated. The other family members make me feel guilty. Of course, they're in such bad shape. So let's just take this one question I just got. All right. Because
Okay.
it fits right in this. Dear Matt, my one parent is an alcoholic. Wait, the other one is an alcoholic and drug addict. Same thing. They were very abusive growing up and are trying to change, but still have it. They don't understand why I don't want to bring the kids around, and they say it's their only grandchildren. The other family members really are angry because they feel like I've dumped the family on them. but I don't want my family to experience what I did. Please help get rid of the guilt. Well, come on, can you get rid of the guilt in 30 seconds? I love the way they said, sincerely, I'll just say Billy Bob.
Billy Bob. Oh, Billy Bob. Yeah. Um,
That's
I
a
don't
big
think,
one. It's a
yeah,
big one.
I don't think you're going to get rid of the guilt, okay, because
Oh,
of all
damn.
all the things that we just said. But I think there are things. Here's my rule of thumb to people that have made decisions based not on what their needs are, what they want to create for themselves and their family, but they're making decisions based on what they perceive their family wants them to do, right? Like
Correct.
I call that living somebody else's life, which all stems from what I just said, right? Because as a child, if I'm defaulting my needs for the needs of others, I'm essentially living the life of these people, not my own life, right? This is why people get very lonely and depressed because it's as if they don't even exist because what I feel and what I want to do doesn't matter. Okay. And so if I take on the obligation of, well, I need to do this for my family, even though it's not what serves me and my family, right? If you take on that obligation, okay, instead of feeling guilty, you're going to feel resentment. Okay. That the obligation will lead to resentment. It's an absolute one-way ticket. Okay. And
Yep.
so when I coach people that are in this scenario and they say, I feel a little guilty, I go, great job, you're on track.
Oh,
Because you're actually living for yourself now. And so, yes, you're going to feel guilty because you've been conditioned that you're not allowed to live for yourself,
okay.
right? And so you gotta like the guilt is a sign you're on track, and then it's like, hey, it's okay, like you're using the guilt as a signal to say, oh, I'm on track. I have a young lady who's very similar situation. It's very cute now. She'll call me. She'll get, I did X, Y, and Z, and I felt so guilty, and she had this big smile on her face. And I was like, "Good job, girl." And she is blossoming into an incredible
Hmm.
young woman. I mean, incredible young woman. And yes, she worked through some of the guilt. She worked through some of the things. She still engages with her family, which is another part of the topic we can talk about because it doesn't mean you have to go to the other extreme and completely not engage, even though I will say there are times where that what does make sense depending on the amount of abuse that's there. But there's
Okay.
ways to create some infrastructure or boundaries to engage in a way that doesn't sacrifice yourself, your family, and your life in the process. And
Okay.
that,
Talk to me because that's a lot of questions that came up.
okay, which I just said a lot of stuff. So
No,
go
about
ahead.
the fact that all or nothing. Because a lot of times you're like,
Yes. Hmm.
cut it clean. They're not,
Yeah.
you hear this all the
Yeah.
time. It's not going to change. They're not going to change. Just cut it clean.
Yep.
And there are
It's,
so many people writing me saying, I would prefer not to do that, but I will if I have to.
yeah. And if you only perceive two options, right? Like a light switch. It's like I either turn it on or I turn it off. I either
Yeah.
take the abuse or I don't, and I completely disengage. Like
Yeah.
these are the options we perceive we have, but that's not true. There is an infinite, if you think of that as a continuum, right? One end of the extreme is do whatever these people say, take their abuse, completely put my needs and my life aside and just do whatever they need when they need it. The other end of it is cut them off, never talking to them again. Those are the ends of the spectrum. But in between those 2 points are an infinite amount of possibilities of calibration of I can be in the middle and I could say, you know what? I'm willing to tolerate this much. I'm willing to engage with them in this context. I am
Mm.
willing to talk to them this frequently. I'm willing to tolerate this degree of dysfunction. But as soon as they name call, I'm out. And I'm going to train them to understand that. And if they're going to do that, I'm out. And, you know, it can get a little, I'm not saying any of this is easy, guys. Like, I please understand, I'm not saying this stuff is easy, but it absolutely, you can take your life back and hold a space for these family members
Yeah.
that creates an opportunity for them to change. But I wouldn't hold your breath.
I'm thinking of years and years ago with some of my family members. I was like, okay, here's the deal. If they start getting wacky and saying horrible things, I'm going to hang up. I'll talk to you when you calm down. Now, so many people would have said just disengage totally, but I thought this is what I'm willing to do, right? And then one family member, and it works to this day, and I just thought about it recently. I was like, we're going to be pen pals, meaning I couldn't trust them on the phone because
Love it.
any little thing would set them off.
Love it.
But I don't want to have you not in my life. And I'm like,
Yeah.
let's write. It's so controllable because I have a
Yes.
relationship.
Well, you're on that spectrum, Sandy. You didn't, you're tinkering with all those different marks on the spectrum. It's like, okay, the talking thing, yeah, let's try writing. You know what? Maybe we'll just do smoke signals. You know what I mean? You just keep calibrating
Yep.
until you can create a space to support them. Okay, because here's the other thing too, if you want to go there. If you continue to engage with these people in the way that enables the behavior, you have to think about like who's winning here, who's really
Nobody.
evolved exactly, right? And so we've all heard the saying tough love, okay? And to me, tough love is serving the highest in them and not getting confused and distracted by the personality doing the crazy things the personality does. So if you truly see beyond the trauma that a lot of these people have endured, because that's usually what creates this type of behavior, if you can see beyond that and you can see that this person is a soul and there's a
Yeah.
purity there and there's a love there and you can serve their highest but not tolerate the personality. And what I mean by that is, love them from afar sometimes,
Yeah.
create a space that they can come into if they choose, okay? And you're there for them, okay? I was just going to open up a major rabbit hole, and I don't know if you want me to, so I just paused because I was going to talk about this idea of unconditional love.
Well, hold on that because I have some
Okay,
questions
okay,
about
yeah, go
this
ahead.
because I think it's really, really important in that what you said, the smoke signals, you figure it out, you figure out what works for you, you know what I mean? Like, and you love them for afar and you truly, I mean, for me, I keep people in my thoughts and I
And
envision
your
them
prayers, and in your prayers, man, that's what I
all the
mean by
time, every
serving their
day.
highest.
And
Yes,
I see it and I see them happy. I send them, I truly do.
yes, that is
But,
exactly what I'm talking about, Sandy. Okay, go ahead.
and it's
But
taken me years to try to even understand this myself, is that because I can understand why they are the way they are, sometimes you tolerate too much. I can tell you that person this da, 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 and there before the grace of God go I. And that's why I'm able to send them love and hold them in a space they can't. But there's a difference between, yeah, I'm not going to have that abuse in my life. I'm not going to take that abuse. That's totally different. I know that you could give me X, Y, Z while you're like that.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean it's still okay for you.
Exactly,
And here's the thing,
exactly.
and I could be offbeat, and I'm even the most serious, mentally ill human being that I've been surrounded by. You can set up the parameters of how you want to have a conversation. And if they know that you won't tolerate that, they're not like that with you. I'm not saying it's everyone because I'm sure there's severes that they can't control it, but I've
Hmm.
been able to,
Hmm.
thank
And
God,
and you've dealt with some relatively severe cases, so I think it
severe
coming
that I'm
from you,
able
it
to,
means something.
yeah, say, okay. And I'm not saying they're not that way with other people,
Huh?
but they know they can't do that with me. And I think that's
Exactly,
good for them.
100%, 100%. And if you're dealing with like it's kind of like you're dealing with a child. I don't want to go as far as to say an animal, but in some ways it is so primitive the way they're responding that it's the closest thing to an animal that you could be, right? That animals respond to conditions and training. I mean, I know that sounds terrible, but they will adapt because they'll take any connection over no connection more often than not. So if you create the conditions for the connection, if you create the conditions for engagement, they'll
Yeah.
usually adapt. But you have to stay firm. If you let them, if you give in an inch, you set yourself back tremendously.
You start all over again.
You really do.
I remember years ago, um, I was listening to a radio show before podcasting, and this woman said that allowing them to say those things to you, like in this case, it was my mom, you're not doing them any favors or yourself.
Exactly.
It's just as bad for them. And that was like, oh my God. So even though my brother, my dad, they think that this is okay for her to speak this way and that she'll feel better. Who feels better saying all those horrible things to someone?
Well, and think about what you'll learn by you setting different rules of the game. She'll have to evolve. That's an
Yeah.
evolution. If there's new rules, a new environment, I have to adapt to it. That's an evolution. But if I never have to, I can just behave any way I want and everybody's going to deal with it. Like nobody's winning, okay? Because they're not evolving, they're not learning, and you are definitely not winning or evolving. You're devolving, if anything, and you're
Yeah.
sacrificing your life in the process.
Yeah. All right. Now let's open the rabbit hole. Unconditional love.
Yeah.
It
I
does tie in. Sometimes we get off topic, but I feel like it's tying into the subject. We're staying on topic today. Yay.
yeah, it's um I think this okay, are you ready for the statement right here?
I'm listening, Matt. I'm ready.
I think unconditional love is what's the nicest way to say this is I don't want to say it's overrated, but I want to say it's misunderstood. Okay. I think what happens is unconditional love somehow got translated to an infinite amount of tolerance for abuse because I love them.
I got you.
Meaning I love them, so therefore, if I love them, I should allow this abuse. I should put my life aside for them because I love them. That's not love, in my opinion. Okay, that's there's a lot of things we could call that, but like unconditional, like you have like it is okay to have conditions in your relationship, people. Please, like people are like, well, isn't that a condition? I'm like, hell yeah. Like, do you think that my wife has conditions for the relationship with me? You think it's unconditional? Meaning, oh, Matt, go sleep with whoever you want, go do whatever you want, and I'll always be here for you because it's unconditional. Think
Oh my
about
God.
how unhealthy that would be for both of us. No, man, she calls me to a higher way of being within myself by holding the line and saying, no, I'm not going to tolerate that. I expect more from you. That to me is a relationship that's worth engaging in. Okay. And yeah, there's conditions to the relationship. Is the love always there from her? Yes. But let's not confuse love with conditions of engagement, rules of engagement. Is that fair?
It is. It
Okay.
is. Okay. All right. I don't want to bastardize this, but you said something to me and I thought it was so profound before we had you on the show. And it was about, how you always do more for your family than anyone else and who says you have to. And you said, of course I do more for my family than anyone else, but it
Yeah.
has limitations.
Yeah.
So
But
that's what I
where's
want
your,
to.
yeah. So where's the line? right? Like, are there things I'll do for my parents that I wouldn't do for some strangers? You bet your butt I would. Okay. 100% I would. Okay. Would I put aside some of my needs for my parents more than others? 100%. Okay. But have I delineated the line?
Yeah.
100%. I would not, I will never sacrifice my role as a father and a husband for my parents for any
I got it.
prolonged period of time. Like that's my line because my
Yeah.
responsibility is my kids. Okay. It's not my parents. Okay. Does that mean I don't care about them, that I won't like do X and Y and Z? 100% no. There's a lot of things that I would do to support my parents. And they're getting older right now. And so there's that need is showing up,
Mm.
right? And so, but I've thought about this before it happened. It's like, well, how far am I willing to go? Right?
Hmm.
Like I think it's important to think about this before you're there. So you're thinking with a clear head. Because once the intensity of emotion shows up, you know, it can get a little dicey. And so I 100% will do more for my sisters and my brothers than I will do for a stranger.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I get it.
Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that's infinite and
Yeah.
unconditional and like I will sacrifice myself, my immediate family for them. No, I wouldn't.
So, Matt.
Because here's what will happen if I do, man. The cycle continues, and that's what I'm teaching my kids to do. And
Yeah.
then I expect my kids to put their life aside for me.
Yeah.
And round we go, baby.
And there goes the resentment. Okay.
Exactly.
I want to switch gears and go a little bit lighter, all right, to balance it out and talk
This has been
about,
so light. What are you talking about?
no, and to back, well, it's been good. Food for thought. Let's talk about just holidays. You and I have talked about this many times. Thanksgiving, Christmas. Okay, so let's say, Matt, you don't have a totally bizarre, abusive, wackadoo family, right? They
Uh-huh.
didn't,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But when you go home to holidays, it's still not a great situation. You still don't enjoy going. You
Mm-hmm.
feel like, which you were just talking about, you're a kid again. You go back home and
Uh-huh.
it's like, Matt, sit up straight. Matt,
Yeah,
why do you
yeah.
hold your phone that way? Matt,
Mm-hmm.
why are your kids not doing this? Matt, why don't da, 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 da? Oh,
Uh-huh.
you're so, and even to the point where you just feel like they're constantly picking on you, like there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing, what? That's all the money you make. You know the situation.
Absolutely. I sure do. Not personally, but I have a lot of clients that I
Yeah,
work with.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. How do you not feel like I should go still because it's family? Like they raised me, they sent me to
Mm-hmm.
college, all these things they did for you,
Mm-hmm.
but they
You mean they
haven't,
did their job?
they did their job right.
Oh,
That,
okay.
yeah, they supported you.
Yeah, just want to
But
make
that's
sure
hanging
that's
over your
clear.
head after
I
all I did
understand, but
was,
all they did was the thing that they were supposed to do when they decided to bring you into this world. So I'm
there's that.
okay. So I just want to throw that in there, but go ahead.
But we're talking about how do you say no to all the other family members. Let's say they go home for the weekend or a long week for Christmas, and the
Sure.
whole time
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got it.
you're trying to protect your kids. And then one person even said, I was even embarrassed in front of my 6-year-old son because he said, why did you let grandpa talk to you that way?
Oh, see, like, okay, so I will definitely jump on this one because
So,
so a couple things. Okay, so from just a big picture, the first step is please own that you do have a choice and you don't have to do anything. Okay, like that is a critical first step. Okay, you can choose to go, you can choose not to go. Okay, nobody has to do a damn thing.
it's
And
going to
I
be a lot of
say
heat if you don't go. It's a lot of heat if
it
you don't.
doesn't matter. You still can choose not to. Like my point is, you don't have to do anything. And here's why this is so important. The word I have to is where obligation comes from. And you
Yeah.
will feel obligated. It'll feel heavy. It'll feel burdensome. Okay. As soon
Resentment.
as resent me exactly, as soon as you own that you have a choice and that you cannot go, and you can go. And you could say, well, if I choose to not go, here's what I'm going to, this is going to be the outcome of that. I'm going to choose to go. This is what I'm going to have to navigate. Say, what do I choose? Choice is power. Okay. Have to, need to, should is all disempowering and will be a heavy obligatory and will lead to resentment. So that's step one. Own that you have a choice because I personally, when I do this with myself, I'm like, Matt, stop with the cop out that you have to do anything. That's a cop out. You can choose
Ooh.
to, or you can choose not to. Okay. And yes, there are outcomes if you choose to go, and there's outcomes if you choose not to go, but own that for yourself. Okay. That's a
Okay.
place of empowerment. Okay. And so that's number one. Now, the second thing is what I was going to say is, and we joke about this, dealing with that family dynamic, okay, and the different variations of that is like having to eat a shit sandwich. Okay. And you're like, how big of a bite am I willing to take here? Am I really, do I have to, I'm going to eat this whole thing? Am I going to just take a little nibble? I know it's not going to be great. I don't really want to eat this shit sandwich, but I'm going to choose to take a little bite. Okay. But I ain't taking 4 bites. And I'm not doing it. There is a line. Okay. And so here's my line with those types of family members. As soon as I see it having a negative impact on my children, I'm out. Like it's
Touche.
done.
Yeah.
The line is drawn because they are more my responsibility than my family, my brothers, sisters, and I brought these kids into the world. It's my responsibility to hold a safe space for them and to embody a way of being that I feel will serve them the greatest. That to me is ownership. And so if I'm in an environment and my child sees me take abuse from somebody and I don't do anything about it, I'm teaching them that that's okay and that there's exceptions to abuse. Like that's the lesson if we want to be super clear about it. And I know that might not be the fuzzy way to put it, but to me it's like you got to stay real about what's happening here, right? And
Yeah.
so as soon as I see that happening with my kids, it's done. And everybody in my family knows that.
Mm.
Okay? Because I have a zero tolerance for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just do. Now, I love my brothers and sisters. I love my parents.
Yeah.
Okay. But and I will do almost anything for them. Okay. But almost anything. Okay. And when certain lines are crossed, it's a hard no for me
Yeah. Yeah.
because there is a hierarchy of who is my top priority. My kids are on the top of that list because I brought them into this world,
Mm.
right? That was a choice I made. And they are here depending on me to show them how to navigate this reality, which is quite a hoot, right? And so, how can I possibly want them to be empowered young women and young men when I'm not embodying that myself?
Yeah.
It's literally teaching them how to speak English their whole life and then sending them to a Russian business and expecting them to be able to speak Russian. It's like you didn't teach them how to speak Russian. How could you possibly send them into that space? It's not fair. Not fair. So I know
So
it's a
here's
little
the deal.
big.
No, here's
Okay.
the deal. It's a lot easier when you have kids to say that, don't you
But
think?
that's fine, sure, because there's a bigger meaning and purpose. Like kids are an easy meaning and purpose. And so this is the other piece of this. It
Yeah.
is totally
Harder.
okay if your meaning and purpose becomes to take care of sick and mentally disturbed family members. So if you don't have other things in your life that are pulling you to have these other missions and
I got you.
purposes, well then your mission and purpose could be to be that for your family members. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah.
that's aligned with your mission, your purpose, and you're making that choice. And you're
Yeah.
not sacrificing this other thing for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with completely dedicating your life to a sick family member if that becomes your mission and purpose in life.
Mm.
And you're not
Good
sacrificing
point.
something else. Or
Good
you say,
point.
you know what, my job isn't as important. My mission, I believe, is to escort my parent or help them this or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. And I get up every
But you
morning.
still chose it, like you
You
said.
chose it, and it'll also give you the resiliency to do so because meaning and purpose. Thank you, Viktor Frankl, for sharing this with us. Right, meaning and purpose gives you resiliency to tolerate challenges. And Viktor Frankl, I mean, I don't know if there's a greater challenge in making it through a Nazi internment camp, right? But you know,
Yeah.
Logos, the whole man's search for meaning. Viktor Frankl. It's like having that meaning and purpose gives you the resilience to tolerate some of these very challenging situations.
So Matt, because we only have a few minutes left, and I know this is a big topic, but I do think we did give a lot of food for thought for people out there who are going through this. And I know we're just scratching the surface. But another big question I want to make sure we get in is that people don't know how to answer people when they say, but it's your family. And they don't want to get into the whole justification of it. But it's your family, but it's your family.
Yeah. So what's
But it's
important to understand,
everything.
yeah, what's important to understand is it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with you're making that person feel uncomfortable with the choice you're making because they can't make that choice. So the more vehemently somebody like responds, "What do you mean you're not going home? This is your family. Are you kidding me?" Blah 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 blah. Because as much as they bet they wish they could live their own life, and not default to family needs, I think that visceral like kind of response that you might get from somebody has more to do with them than it has to do with your decision, right? Because it's so uncomfortable for someone to
Mm,
see somebody do something other than they've done. Because it's like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. How could you not go home? It's your family. Like, so in their mind, there was no choice. And
yeah,
now you're basically showing up and making a different choice. That will rattle people.
yeah,
It will rattle them. So the first thing to understand is their reaction is nothing is less to do with what you're
yeah.
doing. It's showing a mirror of them. And so again, context is everything. So how do you respond to that? I mean, you can say, I know.
I like that. No justification. I know.
Yeah, no, I know. It's not, it's, you could, if you wanted to throw in, I know it was an easy decision, but I feel like it's best for me and my family.
Yeah, I like that. All right,
And so basically what you're saying is you're prioritizing yourself and your family.
yeah, it's hard to, how are you going to knock that? All right, so
Somebody
I
will, but
saved a difficult question to the end.
oh, of course you yes.
Well, I think it's a challenging one. This has to do with your children.
Mhm.
So you have a child who is older
Mhm.
and they're addicted to alcohol or drugs, not a healthy life.
Yeah.
And how do you not help them? How do you not keep them in your home? I got this question a few times, and I think of all the things, that's the most difficult. Like
There's no doubt about it.
the parents, you're not living with them anymore, da, 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 but
Hmm.
this is a child you've raised.
Hmm. Yeah, I
And
mean,
like I
I
just had somebody tell me just yesterday at a networking event, the one son's fine, the other one, they've tried everything and doesn't know. Like, do you kick him out of the house? I mean, it's affecting the whole family.
mhm. Yeah, I've worked with people with this scenario. I mean, I think the runway or the tolerance is probably the longest here,
Yes.
and that would make sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it should be. Um, but that still doesn't mean there's a line.
Mm.
I promise you, there's a line for everyone. I guarantee you, there's a line for everyone. Like it would be impossible for there not to be. Um, so sometimes you're not sure what that line is until you cross it. And other times you think you say, listen, because here's the other thing: if you have a child and you have more than one child, um, you
That's easier
know,
because I don't want to affect that kid.
exactly, there's that, right? Um, but again, if you have nothing else going on, or you have the resources and availability to relentlessly hold space for your kid till the end, oh, great, go for it. I think it's just very important to own the choice you're making and be okay with having a line,
Yeah,
because at some point in time, you know, you're not responsible for their choices.
yeah. And I like that you said there's always a line and that you have to own that that's your decision, that's your choice, because so many people will say, well, if it was my kid, and
Everybody has an answer to a problem they never have to face,
yeah,
right? So, you know what I mean? Like something my dad would say. It's like everyone has an answer to questions they never had to answer, right? So it's so easy for me to say, not ever having been in that situation, here's what I would do. Like, first of all, if someone says that and hasn't been in it, literally it's like, oh, my famous line, oh, thanks for your thoughts. And it's like,
yeah,
it like
yeah,
completely disregard whatever they say. It's
yeah.
irrelevant. But, someone who's been in that situation would be empathetic and compassionate for your situation because they know how difficult that is.
Yeah. Matt, we have to go, man.
It's always so fun with doing this, man. I
I
really
mean, it
do
is,
enjoy
and
it.
I do like it. I love it because
These are hard topics and not easy black and white answers, man. But I think it's
no,
so healthy to at least have conversations about them because it's not
that's
so
the thing.
easy.
That's all I
Yeah.
wanted to do is start the conversation. But before we go, is there anything specific besides how we can reach you, which we will? Anything we didn't get in it you want to get in about this topic?
I just, I guess it's kind of similar to what I said last time I was on your podcast, and I think it correlates to this. Is
You remember?
I do, yeah. It was, to really learn and train your ability to trust yourself. If
Oh,
something doesn't feel right, if something doesn't seem right, if something's out of alignment with who you are and what you want to be and what you want to create in the world, at least listen to it, write it down, consider it. Don't dismiss it with these narratives. Well, I have to because blah, blah, blah. Or, like really tune into that authentic expression of who you are. And that's what trusting yourself is all about. It's getting to know yourself so that you can start to trust that inner voice, that inner knowing. And that's the part that I think so many people have lost because of the things I spoke about at the beginning of our call. We've never had an opportunity to really cultivate our ability to be connected to ourselves because we're so worried about, everybody else's agendas.
yeah. That does help a lot because you're right. If something seems off, I know, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't care what they
Yeah,
say, it doesn't seem right to me, right? And
trust that.
me
Yes.
trusting myself. All right. So how can they find you? How can they book you? I know you said you had a course available, and how can they buy your book? Tell us everything.
Yeah, so I mean, I do have a free course that's available right now. You just go to healthratrace.com and it's a free course. It kind of is a whole overview of kind of what I call the vitality paradigm, which is very different from a health paradigm, as you may have heard me say in other times. Like health to me is about survival, vitality is about thriving. And so it's a different way to go about life. And so healthratrace.com is a great place to kind of dive into some of these topics.
Cool.
You can go into my website, matthewlabosco.com, if you're interested in connecting with me in other ways.
I like the rat race. Yeah, that's cool. All right, my Let's Keep It Real people. Matt is keeping it real on the Hey, I Got Something to Say show because normally he comes on Let's Keep It Real, but I didn't want to wait for him to come on that show. So that's what I brought him on. And I'll probably bring him back to the Hey, I Got Something to Say. And my females will totally understand that. I think they will, you know? We appreciate you rating, liking it, sharing it with it, whomever. Come on, there's so many people that are going to need to listen to this episode. And until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Bye, Matt and Toodles.
Hi, guys.